Throughout history, some names echo louder than others. In the heart of the church, through wars, heresies, empires, and reform, one name keeps returning: Leo. It's not just a name, it's a roar, a symbol of power, prophecy, and papal resolve. 13 popes have chosen it, saints and reformers, diplomats and warriors. Some changed the course of empires. Others stood alone in silence, bearing the weight of the church in the darkest hours. And now, in a new century, that name has returned once again, with the election of Pope Leo the 14th. In this video, we uncover the untold stories of every pope who bore the name Leo. Stories of strength, sacrifice, and divine mystery. Stay with us until the end, because understanding the past may just reveal what's coming next. Pope Leo I, Saint Leo the Great. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more captivating Catholic history that dives deep into faith, power, and divine intervention. Of all the men who bore the name Leo, one stands alone as both legend and lion. Pope Leo the Great, elected in the year 440, rose during a time when the Western Roman Empire was disintegrating. Chaos was everywhere. Heresies fractured the Church's unity, and barbarian invasions threatened the heart of Christendom. But Leo wasn't just a leader, he was a pillar. He defined what it meant to be the vicar of Christ in an age without certainty. Perhaps the most unforgettable moment of his pontificate came in 452, when Attila the Hun, feared across Europe, marched toward Rome. The Eternal City stood helpless, no legions, no defense. But Leo went out alone to meet the scourge of God. No swords, just words. What passed between them remains shrouded in mystery, but what followed was clear. Attila turned back. Rome was spared. Leo's power didn't lie in might, but in moral authority. He was also a brilliant theologian. His writings at the Council of Chalcedon became the cornerstone of Christological doctrine. The bishops there famously declared, "Peter has spoken through Leo." And in that moment, papal authority was no longer just Roman, it became universal. Pope Leo II, Saint Leo II. After a giant like Leo the Great, it would be easy to be forgotten. But Pope Leo II, elected in the year 682, left a quiet but meaningful mark. His pontificate lasted less than a year. Yet even in that short time, he defended the truth with precision. He confirmed the decisions of the Third Council of Constantinople, which condemned the heresy of monothelitism, the idea that Christ had only a divine will, not a human one. Leo didn't just agree with the council, he translated its decrees, explained them to the West, and ensured that the truth reached every corner of the Latin Church. He also clarified a controversial moment in papal history. While confirming the condemnation of Pope Honorius, Leo specified that Honorius wasn't guilty of heresy, but of silence, of failing to act when truth was under threat. A rare and humble act of papal accountability. Leo II was a man of music, a skilled linguist, and a bridge between East and West. His time was short, but his clarity still echoes.
Embark on a spiritual journey with our new ebook, 50 Saints, Stories and Prayers for Divine Intervention. This inspiring collection delves into the lives of 50 revered saints, offering their powerful stories and heartfelt prayers to guide you towards divine intervention. Perfect for personal reflection or group study, this ebook is a must-have for every devout Catholic. Enhance your faith and discover the strength of these saintly figures. Find the download link in the pinned comment below.
Pope Leo III, the crowner of an emperor. Pope Leo III, elected in the year 795, did something no pope had dared in centuries. On Christmas Day of the year 800, inside the old St. Peter's Basilica, he placed a golden crown on the head of Charlemagne, king of the Franks, and with that act, revived the Western Roman Empire. It wasn't just a coronation, it was a declaration. that spiritual authority could elevate earthly power, that the Pope didn't simply bless kings, he could make them. But Leo's reign wasn't peaceful. Just a few years earlier, he had been attacked in the streets of Rome, accused of perjury and immorality. His enemies tried to blind him and tear out his tongue. He survived. And with the protection of Charlemagne, he returned. Not as a victim, but as a symbol of resilience. He rebuilt churches, restored order, and defended the independence of the papacy from Roman nobility. In Leo III, the tiara was no longer just a crown of honor. It was a shield. He crowned an empire, yes, but more than that, he crowned the papacy itself with new power. Pope Leo IV, the defender of Rome. Pope Leo IV, elected in the year 847, found Rome scarred. Saracen pirates had raided the city just 2 years before, burning churches and desecrating relics. The Eternal City, once center of the Christian world, lay exposed. Leo responded not only with prayer, but with stone. He ordered the construction of a massive wall to enclose the Vatican Hill, creating what would become known as the Leonine City. It was the first time in history that a pope fortified Rome. Faith needed protection, and Leo built it. But he didn't stop at walls. He united Christian naval forces from Gaeta, Naples, and Amalfi to confront the Saracen fleet. The result? Victory at the Battle of Ostia, a turning point for Christian Europe, later immortalized in Renaissance frescoes. Leo IV was later canonized, and not just for his holiness. In an age of fear, he gave Rome courage. He proved that a shepherd defends his flock not only with a staff, but with strength. Pope Leo V, the forgotten pontiff. Pope Leo V came to power in the year 903 during one of the darkest periods in papal history. Known as the Saculum Obscurum, the Dark Age, the papacy was no longer shaped by saints, but by schemes. Roman nobles controlled the throne of Peter like a family inheritance. Leo V was elected lawfully, but his reign lasted only weeks. He was deposed and imprisoned by a rival named Christopher, who may have declared himself pope or anti-pope, depending on which chronicle you trust. Some say Leo was murdered in captivity. Others say he simply disappeared. No decrees, no councils, no legacy, except the silence. And yet, his brief pontificate reminds us of a deeper truth, that the weight of the papacy is not always carried in glory. Sometimes it's carried in chains. Leo V may be forgotten by most, but in heaven, obscurity does not erase obedience. Pope Leo VI, the shadowed shepherd. In the year 928, Pope Leo VI ascended to the papacy, but not by popular acclaim or holy reform. He was chosen by Rome's ruling elite, likely placed there by the powerful Theophylact family who treated the papacy as political currency rather than sacred mission. His pontificate lasted only a few months, and history remembers almost nothing of what he said, did, or taught. But perhaps that's the lesson. Leo VI lived in a time when the voice of the Pope could be silenced not by martyrdom, but by manipulation. He held the keys of Peter in an era when those keys were passed around like trophies. There were no councils, no bold letters, no confrontation with kings, only shadows. Yet even in the shadows, a shepherd remains a shepherd. And Leo VI, though silenced in life, still wore the ring of succession and carried the burden of the Church. Pope Leo VII, the monk diplomat. Pope Leo VII, elected in the year 936, was not a warrior or a politician. He was a monk, a Benedictine with a calm spirit in a chaotic time. His election was backed by Alberic II, the de facto ruler of Rome, who allowed Leo to govern the church, so long as he stayed out of politics. And Leo did exactly that. He focused on peace, on prayer, on preserving the dignity of the Church in an era of corruption. He supported the Cluniac reform movement, which called monks and priests back to holiness, discipline, and independence from worldly power. His most controversial act? Allowing King Otto of Germany to exile Jews who refused baptism, while firmly prohibiting forced conversions. A tense balancing act between mercy and pressure typical of the age. Leo VII reigned only 3 years. But in that time, he proved that reform doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers. Pope Leo VIII, the disputed pontiff. Pope Leo VIII was elected in the year 963. But whether he was truly a pope or an anti-pope has been debated ever since. His rise came after the dramatic deposition of Pope John XII by Emperor Otto I, who sought to bring the papacy firmly under imperial control. Leo was installed by the emperor, not by a free election of the clergy. That made his position fragile and controversial. When John XII briefly returned to power, Leo was driven out. But after John's death, Leo was restored and ruled until the year 965. In that short time, he issued reforms favoring imperial influence, limiting the autonomy of Rome, and reshaping the balance between crown and church. To some, Leo VIII was a stabilizer during chaos. To others, he was a puppet placed on Peter's throne. But either way, his papacy marked a turning point. The moment when the world saw that the keys of heaven could be claimed by the hand of an emperor. Pope Leo IX, the last before the schism. Pope Leo IX, born Bruno of Eguisheim, was elected in the year 1049. And from the moment he took office, he refused to be a passive figurehead. He traveled widely through Europe, confronting corruption face to face, holding synods, excommunicating bishops, and insisting on reforms. Simony, clerical marriage, and spiritual decay were rampant, and Leo came to cleanse the house of God. But his most defining moment came in the year 1054. Tensions between East and West had been simmering for centuries. In a final attempt at dialogue, Leo sent his envoy, Cardinal Humbert, to Constantinople. But instead of peace, the mission collapsed. Humbert placed a bull of excommunication on the altar of the Hagia Sophia. The Patriarch responded in kind, and the Great Schism was born, splitting the Church into Catholic and Orthodox, Rome and Byzantium, Latin and Greek. Leo IX died before the news reached him. He never knew the full weight of what had been set in motion. He is remembered as a saint, a reformer, a lion who tried to heal, and whose roar echoed into a division that still lasts today. Pope Leo X, the Renaissance Prince. Pope Leo X, born Giovanni de' Medici, was elected in the year 1513. A son of Florence, a patron of sacred art, music, and beauty. Under his reign, the Vatican became a reflection of heavenly glory. He funded Raphael, supported Michelangelo, and brought the Renaissance into service of the Church, to uplift the soul and honor God. But magnificence demands means. To continue building St. Peter's Basilica, Leo encouraged the use of indulgences, spiritual privileges granted by the Church to the faithful. Misused by some preachers and misunderstood by many, this practice sparked unrest in Germany, where a monk named Martin Luther launched his public revolt. In the year 1517, Luther posted his 95 Theses in Wittenberg. Pope Leo responded with clarity and firmness, eventually excommunicating him. But rebellion had already taken root. Leo X is often remembered for the phrase, "God has given us the papacy, let us enjoy it." Whether truly his or not, the world seized on it. He ruled like a prince of peace, dressed Rome in splendor for the glory of God. and died defending the unity of the Church, wounded not by indulgence but by disobedience. Pope Leo the 11th, the Lightning Pope. Pope Leo the 11th, born Alessandro de' Medici, was elected on the 1st of April in the year 1605. His reign lasted just 26 days, one of the shortest in papal history. He became known as Papa Lampo, the Lightning Pope, a flash of light that appeared, then vanished. Leo was elderly and in poor health, but full of energy and intention. He had hoped to be a pope of reconciliation, mending diplomatic wounds between France and Rome. His coronation was solemn and heavy with symbolism, but the strain proved too much. Less than a month later, he collapsed and died. There are no encyclicals, no councils, no decrees. And yet, his papacy reminds us that even a brief light still shines. Sometimes God writes his will in lightning, quick, bright, and impossible to ignore. Pope Leo the 12th, the Watchman of Tradition. Pope Leo the 12th, born Annibale di la Genga, was elected in the year 1823 at a time when the world was changing fast. Revolutions had shaken Europe, Enlightenment ideas were spreading, and many believed the papacy would fade quietly into irrelevance. Leo thought otherwise. Sickly and severe, he saw himself not as a ruler, but as a watchman, standing guard over a church under siege. He reimposed strict moral discipline, censored books, and revived the index of forbidden works. He cracked down on clerical laxity, reinforced public morality, and tried to shield the faithful from the growing influence of secularism. But his rule wasn't without shadows. He reinstated restrictions on Jewish communities, confining them once again to ghettos. His critics called him repressive, his supporters, a guardian of purity. Leo XII reigned for 6 years, and though he did not lead the church into the future, he refused to let it be dragged backward without a fight. He stood like a statue in the storm, unbending, unmoved, and certain that tradition was worth defending at any cost. Pope Leo XIII, the Church's philosopher. Pope Leo XIII, born Vincenzo Gioacchino Pecci, was elected in the year 1878. Many believed he was a placeholder, a gentle old man to fill the throne after turbulent times. But he reigned for 25 years, becoming one of the most influential popes of the modern era. He was a scholar, a diplomat, and a visionary. He reopened the Vatican Library, promoted the philosophy of St. Thomas Aquinas, and called the Church to engage the modern world, not fear it. But his greatest legacy was Rerum Novarum, an encyclical published in the year 1891. In it, Leo XIII defended workers' rights, condemned both unchecked capitalism and radical socialism, and laid the foundation for what would become Catholic social teaching. He called for fair wages, decent working conditions, and the dignity of labor, long before such ideas became political demands. He also promoted devotion to the Holy Rosary, urging Catholics to rediscover the power of prayer in a world of rapid change. When he died at the age of 93, he was the oldest pope in history and one of the wisest. Leo XIII didn't retreat from the modern world. He spoke to it, and in doing so, he gave the Church a voice that still speaks today. Pope Leo XIV, a new lion. Rises now after more than a century, the name Leo has returned to the chair of Peter. In the year 2025, the world watched as Pope Leo XIV, the first American-born pontiff, stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica and greeted the world with a voice both humble and bold. His past is marked by missionary work in Latin America, deep theological formation, and a quiet devotion to the poor. But his choice of name speaks louder than biography. It is not nostalgia, it is mission. A name that recalls Leo the Great's courage, Leo the XIII's wisdom, and perhaps a hope to bridge tradition and renewal. Leo the XIV has inherited a church wrestling with division, indifference, and the wounds of scandal. And yet, from the moment he raised his hand in blessing, his call was clear: unity, truth, and mercy. He speaks often of the church as a field hospital, as a home for the broken. He wears the red mozzetta with purpose, not as ornament, but as symbol that sacrifice is part of service. He is still writing his legacy, but the lion has roared once more. May God bless Pope Leo the XIV with strength, clarity, and peace. And may his voice, like those before him, carry the gospel to the ends of the earth. 13 popes have worn the name Leo, and each one carried its weight differently. Some were theologians, some were warriors, some were shadows lost in the politics of their age. But every Leo left a mark. From confronting invading armies to confronting corrupt systems, from restoring walls to restoring hearts, the legacy of the Leos is carved deep into the soul of the Church. It's no coincidence that this name keeps returning. Leo means lion, a symbol of courage, truth, and royal authority. And in every generation, the Church has needed those qualities. Not always in the same way, not always in the same voice, but always when it mattered most. Today, as Pope Leo the XIV begins his mission, we remember not just history but prophecy. Because the papacy is not just about governance, it's about grace. And the roar of a lion still has power in a world aching for clarity. If this journey through papal history stirred something in you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with others who love the deep, untold stories of our faith. And if you'd like to dive even deeper into lives of courage and holiness, explore our ebook, 50 Saints, Stories and Prayers for Divine Intervention. Available now in our store just below this video. History isn't over. It's being written. And sometimes, it's written by a Leo.